The training hall reeked of sweat, metal, and the sour tension of waiting. Cradle 9's combat dome loomed silent under artificial gravity, lit by pale blue floodlights that cast long shadows over the mat. Rows of cadets, scaled, furred, tentacled, and human, lined the perimeter. No one spoke. Everyone was watching her. Riley Cade stood barefoot on the polished floor, muscles coiled beneath her gray training uniform. She flexed her fingers once. Her heart rate was steady, but she could feel the weight of 100 eyes on her. Most expected a spectacle. Some hoped for a failure. Instructor Kroltax, 7 feet of armored arrogance, stepped forward. His obsidian scales glinted under the lights. He moved with the lazy menace of a predator who believed the hunt was already over. "Deathworlder," he said. "Front and center." Riley stepped onto the mat. Her boots echoed once on the steel before she kicked them off. She stopped exactly 2 meters away, chin raised. "You will demonstrate hand-to-hand grappling for the class," Kroltax growled. "Defend yourself. No weapons. No excuses." She raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want that, Instructor?" A low ripple of laughter flickered among the cadets. Kroltax's eyes narrowed. "I want obedience." He lunged. Faster than expected, blinding, even, but she'd trained for that. Riley pivoted, shifting her stance low, but Kroltax wasn't sparring. He was striking. His open palm cracked across her face with a sound like raw meat hitting concrete. The room gasped. Pain bloomed. She staggered. Her vision fuzzed white, then red. Blood flowed fast, hot and thick from her broken nose. She didn't fall. "Observe," Kroltax said, turning to the watching cadets. "This is what uncontrolled emotion gets you. Weakness." Riley wiped the blood with the back of her hand. Her voice came low, steady. "No. That's what cheap shots get you." The silence snapped. She moved. It wasn't rage. It was calculation. She ducked inside his guard, grabbed his right wrist, twisted hard, and dropped her weight like a guillotine. Her knee slammed into his elbow. A wet, unmistakable snap filled the room. Kroltax howled. The sound was alien, shrill and ragged, as he collapsed sideways, his arm grotesquely twisted. Gasps erupted. Some cadets stood. A few backed away. One whispered, "Holy void." Security drones clicked to life, hovering into view, but Riley raised both hands slowly and backed away from the crumpled instructor. She looked at the other cadets, then directly at the dome's mounted cameras. "I defended myself. No weapons. No excuses." The drones locked onto her, but didn't fire. Protocol gray zone, she figured. Just how I like it. Kroltax writhed, clutching his arm. Blood, thicker and darker than hers, dripped onto the mat. He growled between gritted fangs, "You, worthless." Riley took a half-step toward him. "Try finishing that sentence with a working arm." The drones buzzed louder. One flickered a red warning light. She raised her hands again. "I'm done." Silence held like a wire stretched taut. Finally, a disembodied voice crackled from the overhead speaker. "Cadet Cade. Return to quarters. Await tribunal review. Medical dispatch to combat floor." The lights dimmed. Cadets parted as she walked through them, barefoot and blood-smeared. No one dared stop her. Not after what they'd seen. She didn't stop at her bunk. Riley detoured to the washroom, locking the door behind her. Cold water stung as she rinsed her face, watching her reflection blur in the cracked mirror. Her nose was crooked, definitely broken, but she'd fix it. She exhaled slowly and pushed the bridge back into place with a quiet grunt. Pain meant nothing. Pain was data. She sat on the floor, back against the cold metal, letting her heart slow. They had wanted her humiliated. Had wanted to break her publicly, make her an example. She gave them a different lesson. The last words of her uncle echoed faintly in memory, In the wild, the second you flinch, you're meat. But if they bleed first, they'll think twice next time. She didn't come to Cradle 9 to impress anyone. She came to survive, and maybe prove that humans didn't need to beg for a seat at the table. They'd carve their own chair. And if someone tried to flip the table, they'd break it instead. She stood, wiped the last of the blood from her face, and walked out. Security waited down the hall. The lead officer was a four-limbed Varakian, armed but cautious. "Cade," he said. "We're escorting you to holding until the tribunal meets." "Understood." As they walked, he glanced at her, unreadable behind his opaque visor. "That was fast." Riley didn't smile. "He started it. And you finished it." She nodded once. "You're not like the others." "Yeah," she muttered, "I get that a lot." The holding cell was quiet, too quiet. No clanking of boots. No hum of training drills. No voices. Just Riley Cade, sitting on the edge of a cold alloy bench, elbows on her knees, eyes fixed on the opposite wall like it might blink first. The walls pulsed with a faint blue light. A surveillance orb hovered in the corner, its red iris locked on her since arrival. She didn't care. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Her nose throbbed with dull heat. The med drone had sprayed a quick-fix dermaseal over the split, but the bruise was blooming nicely. Purple. Almost pretty. She flexed her fingers, rehearsing the hold that shattered Kroltax's arm. "Clean break," she muttered. "Minimal force. No follow-up. Just enough. Enough to make a statement. Not enough to be labeled a savage." There was a difference. The door hissed open. A tall figure stepped in, Commander Vishel, a silver-plated Ulari with a triangular crest and flowing military robes. Old enough to remember the Scorn Wars. Known for his calculated neutrality. He didn't sit. Just stood, hands folded behind his back. "Cadet Cade," he began. "I've reviewed the footage. You acted without authorization. Used lethal technique in a controlled demonstration. You assaulted a superior." Riley didn't blink. "He assaulted me first. Technically, he instructed you to defend. He broke my nose." Vishel's head tilted slightly. "And you broke his arm. Is that balance?" "No. That's restraint." A pause. Then he sighed. "You're lucky he's conscious. If he'd lost more than a limb, we'd be discussing deportation, not tribunal." She nodded once. "Understood." He studied her face. "You're not afraid of consequences, are you?" "I grew up in post-quake Montana. Consequences don't scare me. Wasting my chance does." Vishel's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but not a frown either. "Why are you here, Cade?" "Really?" "Because someone needs to see what we can do when we're not just surviving. When we're given a chance to evolve." The commander said nothing for a moment. Then he turned and left. 2 hours later, Riley stood in a narrow auditorium, flanked by 2 security officers. The tribunal chamber was dim and quiet, with tiered seating curving around a single platform. At the center stood a translucent hollow podium where the tribunal's 3 members projected their images. They appeared one by one. A Cathari judge in ceremonial silver robes. A pale-skinned Tenari with no eyes, only glowing sockets. And a human, the only one in the room besides Riley, a grizzled colonel named Marcus Vane, his face half metal from a war Earth rarely talked about. The Cathari spoke first. "We are assembled to determine the disciplinary response to Cadet Riley Cade of Earth, following an incident involving physical retaliation against Instructor Kroltax." Vane raised a finger. "Retaliation? Or defense?" The Tenari's voice was whisper-soft. "Intent is unclear. Cadet Cade used a joint lock maneuver consistent with close-quarter kill techniques." Vane leaned forward. "She disabled, not killed. I've reviewed the footage 3 times. She had control. She chose to stop. Riley spoke up. With respect, I didn't stop because of your rules. I stopped because breaking more bones wasn't necessary. A murmur passed through the chamber. The Tenari turned its glowing gaze toward her. Do you regret your actions? I regret that my nose is broken, she said plainly. I regret that I was set up to be an example. Vane smirked. The Kethari frowned. Vishel stepped into the circle. May I submit supplemental data? Permission was granted. A screen unfolded beside the podium, showing the results of Riley's psychological evaluation. Vishel summarized. Cadet Cade ranks in the 98th percentile for stress regulation under duress. Her responses suggest extreme emotional control, rapid threat assessment, and zero retaliatory impulses beyond what she deemed necessary to neutralize a hostile force. The Kethari's eyes narrowed. You're saying she's not dangerous? I'm saying she's trained, not reactive. The Tenari murmured, or perhaps she's a hybrid of both. Colonel Vane folded his arms. The real question is, are you afraid of her because she's dangerous, or because she's competent? No one answered. The tribunal deliberated silently. After 5 minutes, the verdict arrived. Cadet Cade, the Kethari said. You will remain at Cradle 9 under behavioral observation. You are to be reassigned to Squad Delta under Joint Command. Instructor Kroltax has been placed on medical leave pending review. Riley nodded once. Understood. Do not mistake this outcome for absolution, the Tenari added. You are not admired here. I'm not here for admiration, she replied. Colonel Vane smiled. Riley met her new squad the next morning. Squad Delta was a mess, mixed species, fractured trust, and 3 previous cadet leaders who'd all washed out or cracked under pressure. She walked in wearing a fresh uniform, bandage still on her nose. New human? Asked a 4-eyed Jathari with long fingers and ink-black skin. You're the one who snapped the bonekeeper? Riley raised an eyebrow. That what they're calling him now? The Jathari snorted. Name's Tech. Welcome to the landfill. Another cadet, a broad-shouldered reptilian, eyed her warily. You think you're tough? I think I'm tired, she replied. Let's train. Tech blinked. No speeches? Why waste breath? As they lined up for drills, Tech leaned over and whispered, You know the others are betting on how fast you crack. I don't crack, she said without looking at him. I bend. Then I hit back. Later that day, she found a message blinking in her console. Sender, M. Vane. Subject, one to watch. You didn't come here to make friends. That's fine. But you might have just made history instead. Don't flinch. Vane. Riley leaned back and let the message fade. They hadn't broken her. Now they were watching. And that was a bigger threat than any alien fist. The desert simulation dome felt like walking into the belly of a sun. Fine yellow grit danced in the artificial wind. The cracked soil crunched beneath heavy boots. Visibility dropped to 5 meters in the storm-blasted zone, and Squad Delta was already spread too thin. Riley Cade crouched behind a rock slab, eyes scanning through the amber haze. Her comm crackled. Tech's voice, commands out. Jarrah's down. We've lost signal from the rear flank. Your point now. She didn't reply. She just tapped her earpiece twice, affirmative, and moved. Her HUD blinked with warnings. Hostiles simulated. Ambush probable. Squad cohesion fractured. It was a war game, technically. But Riley knew better. This was a test. Not just of tactics, but of leadership, of species, of her. And failure wasn't scripted. She slid down a ridge, came face to face with another cadet, Tarn, a tusked Valerie twice her size. He looked panicked. They've cut us off, he shouted. We need to regroup. No, Riley said, already kneeling to draw lines in the dirt. We split further. What? That's suicide. It's improvisation, she corrected. You said they're coming from the north. That means they expect us to run south. So we don't. Tarn hesitated. She pointed at the cliff edge. You take tech and loop wide, draw their fire. I'll hit them from behind once they're committed. And what if they see through it? Then we improvise again. For a moment, he stared at her like she was mad. Then he nodded. You really are from a death world. No, she said. I'm just used to surviving ones. 10 minutes later, the trap was sprung. Their pursuers, simulated enemy drones with live force feedback, moved exactly as Riley predicted, aggressive, overconfident, assuming superiority. They didn't expect humans to flout traditional doctrine. They didn't expect a cadet to send a diversion into a sandstorm and launch a counterattack with zero cover. They didn't expect her. Riley dropped from a ridge, landed hard, and slammed her knee into the nearest drone's neck joint. Sparks. Collapse. She rolled, grabbed the fallen drone's shock baton, and used it to disable 2 more. 3 seconds. Clean. Precise. Above her, a countdown clock blinked red, 90 seconds to extraction. She sprinted toward the evac point. Gunfire hissed through the wind. She ducked low, weaving between sandstone ruins, lungs burning but feet sure. Tech's voice snapped through the comm were clear. They're breaking. Copy, Riley panted. Fall back. I'm right behind you. She reached the evac zone first. Drones powered down one by one, and the simulation dome dimmed. The yellow haze receded, revealing the stunned faces of her squad mates. She didn't smile. Anyone injured? Tarn shook his head. Just pride. A few others chuckled. Tet clapped his hands. We just pulled off a win against superior numbers, low resources, fractured chain of command, and we didn't die. We adapted, Riley said. That's what matters. 2 hours later, the footage was playing before Galactic High Command. Not just Cradle 9's instructors. Not just the tribunal panel. This time, it was the top. The council room was dark except for the projection on the center holopad, Riley disarming a drone mid-air, turning its weapon against its own squad. Colonel Vane sat with arms folded, watching the room more than the screen. Commander Vishel stood beside him. She anticipated enemy strategy, violated 3 core protocols, and turned a fragmented team into a working unit. And, asked the Ketheri representative. She won, Vishel said simply. The room was quiet. A Tenari admiral finally spoke. She disobeyed the rulebook. Vane grinned. The rulebook was written by people who've never fought to eat. Another voice from the far end, an aged Maltheri tactician, murmured, This human operates like an insurgent, not a cadet. Exactly, said Vishel. Is that a compliment? It's a warning. Back on Cradle 9, Riley sat alone in the observatory deck, staring at the stars. The station's rotation brought Earth into view, a pale blue coin, far away but centered in her thoughts. Footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. You walk like a Varakian, but too light to be security. Tech? Good guess, came his voice. He sat beside her, quiet for a moment. You made command nervous. I made command look in the mirror. Tech chuckled. They're not used to that. No one is, she said. He glanced at her. You really think humans belong here? Riley didn't look at him. No. He blinked. Wait, what? I think we belong beyond here, she said. We're not here to fit in. We're here to push the line forward. He nodded slowly. That scares them. It should. The next morning, Riley was summoned to the command deck. Colonel Vane stood alone, no tribunal, no projection. Just him. You're not in trouble, he said before she could speak. Could have fooled me. He gestured to a chair. She stayed standing. You've disrupted command structure. You've humiliated a senior instructor. You've shaken assumptions at the highest levels of the Alliance. She folded her arms. And? He smiled. And it's time someone wrote a new doctrine. He tapped a datapad. I'm creating a specialized joint task unit. Experimental. Cross-species, adaptive tactics, irregular warfare. I want you in. She didn't hesitate. Understood. Good. He looked up. You'll need to train them. Most haven't fought outside simulations. They'll learn, she said. Or they'll bleed trying. He studied her a moment longer. You're not like the others. I know. And that's exactly why I'm trusting you with this. Later, alone in her bunk, Riley finally smiled. Not because she'd won. Not because she'd proven anything. But because, for the first time, the galaxy wasn't trying to change her. It was starting to change because of her. And that was something no doctrine could contain.